Hi, I am Mark W., and I am in recovery. Uh, for those of you who may know that I'm on, welcome. This is my first presentation on my YouTube channel, and I hope that as time goes on, we'll get more subscribers. Please, if you like the video, please let me know that at the end. Any comments that you may have, and hopefully we'll have a growing group of people who maybe hopefully will benefit from these weekly presentations I'm going to give. Normally, I would be doing this on a Sunday evening, but because of Father's Day tomorrow, I may be with my family. I decided to do it tonight at 9 o'clock. So, welcome. And the reason I introduced myself as Mark W., and I'm in recovery, is that for people who are in programs dealing with addiction, they usually start their meetings by introducing themselves as, "Hi, I'm Mark W., and I'm a compulsive gambler," or "Hi, I'm Mark W., and I'm an alcoholic." In other words, with a group of people who are dealing with that same issue, there's an understanding and automatic support. But I think most of us, if not all of us, are in some kind of recovery. In other words, we're always trying to improve ourselves. And so I think that probably for the most part, we're all in need of improvement. Maybe that's why you've tuned in to see if there's anything that I may say tonight that may be helpful to you. And by me expressing it, maybe it's helping me as well. So I'm basing these presentations on the 12-step program. And we're going to begin with step one. And by the way, the title for tonight's presentation is Power Outage, which I find rather interesting given the fact that here in the St. Louis area, we've been having a number of storms today. And the power almost went out here, and I was getting a little worried, but we seem to be doing okay. And as I mentioned, we'll begin with that first step. And I've kind of reworded it a little bit to try to apply to everybody who may be watching this presentation. Step one is that we admitted we're powerless over our behaviors and our lives have become unmanageable. With whatever we're dealing with in our life, doesn't it always, it comes out in our behavior, in our relationships with other people, in our relationship with ourselves. Whatever it is that we find ourselves getting into that helps us alleviate anxiety or stress or pain, that may turn into something that we can't find ourselves getting rid of. It's usually trying to figure out how we're going to interact with other people given the situations that we find ourselves in. So tonight, I thought that I would give you some key words to think about. That first word, as I've been mentioning, is behavior. Definition of that may be helpful to us is the way in which one acts or conducts oneself based on a stimulation or action coming from someone's environment or relationships with others. So we may think about our family life. We may think about our work life. We may think about our social life. What kind of behaviors do we have in all of those areas of our lives? Are they consistent? Are they different? Do we feel we have to put on a different kind of mask or a different way in which we may interact with our friends as opposed to how we interact in our workplace or with our family? So whatever it is, the situation we find ourselves in, we respond or we react to that situation. How we strive to try to either be ourselves or sometimes try to be somebody else in order to feel comfortable in that situation. As we strive to figure that out, sometimes we may find ourselves getting into another key word that I like to mention tonight, and that is compulsion. Compulsion is an irresistible urge to behave in a certain way, especially against one's conscious wishes, values, or morals. So, compulsion is finding something that gives us relief from a stressful situation or to suspend negative feelings in order either to feel nothing or to feel better or to feel different, whatever that compulsion might be. For some people, it might be smoking. I know that I'm a smoker and I'm trying to quit. For others, it could be eating. When we eat something, we eat in order to either feel better or to feel nothing. Drinking. Drinking makes us feel different and act different. We don't like the way we are and we want to be somebody else, so we get into that. For others, it may be gambling, going to the casino and just zoning out and taking a break from reality and just being in a different kind of world and feeling the thrill of taking the risk of placing bets, whatever that compulsion is. Now, I mention all those, and for some people, they're just compulsions. They haven't turned into a full blown addiction. In other words, from time to time, people may turn to those things in order to take a break. It's kind of a shortcut. We as human beings don't like feeling bad. Um, I think that could be true for all of us. We don't like feeling angry. We don't like feeling stressed. We don't like feeling upset, whatever the situation might be. And so, what we do is we find something that immediately takes that feeling away. So, sometimes we may have discovered like smoking a cigarette will calm us, or eating a piece of cake and having a second piece, or deciding to go ahead and have that second or third drink, because then we feel different than the way we're feeling, which we don't want to feel. It's a compulsion, it's an urge. Sometimes what happens is with compulsions is that we'll go against what our values are. For somebody that is needing to be at work at 7 o'clock the next morning and you're out with friends and you've had kind of a bad day. And so you go out for a few drinks and you stay out way too late. And you wake up the next day and you're not as alert as you'd like to be for work, or you oversleep and you don't make it to work if it becomes a real problem. So think about those things in your life that have caused you to kind of going against your values or your routine, and people who want to be responsible and you find yourself being irresponsible. Going back to that first step, our lives have become unmanageable. Those unmanageable times in your life, things seem to kind of unravel for you. And the more that you don't want to deal with it, the more unraveled it is. I know that in my life, with the stresses I faced in my life, um, a lot of times I would turn to a particular behavior that would make me not think about it. Now, it's okay to take a break from thinking about things. We all need to take a break, but it's what we find, it's how we find it. And if it gives us immediate satisfaction, it's more than likely going to be something we're going to turn to again, and then again, and then again. And then what could happen is we don't seem to we want those things not in what we would call a normal or sane way. It'd be totally okay for normal people to go out and have a few drinks. It'd be totally okay for somebody to have something really nice to eat, get a second helping. It may be a good idea or normal to go out with a group of friends to the casino and just spend a couple of hours or maybe just an hour playing the slots or playing at the blackjack table, whatever. And that's all it is. But there is what we call in our 12-step recovery programs this invisible line. The line in which we cross where we really don't care if people are with us or not. And we want to entertain those compulsions or those things that we want for ourselves only, almost to the point that we begin to isolate ourselves. I know that for myself, when I would entertain a particular addiction or compulsion that I would have, I really didn't want anybody else with me. It was just something I wanted to do for me. As a matter of fact, I wanted to take a break from everybody. I didn't want to have to talk about whatever it was I was dealing with, and I didn't want to have to be feeling it. So as a result, I would go and feel something else. The thrill of making a big bet and having a major win, or doing so many shots of a particular whiskey that I would like or whatever, and you know, uh, maybe sometimes with a couple of people there, but just feeling that numbness. I guess I found in when I would get involved in a particular addiction, it was really to feel nothing, because I got tired of feeling things. Just wanted to just zone out of life. That would work for a while. And it felt pretty good actually to actually forget or to place a particular perception on it and place myself as the victim. I deserve to do this for myself. It's okay for me to do this, even though it would begin to make me feel a little guilty. That was going against something that I believe in, like being responsible and being true to what I say I was going to do. Um, so when we find ourselves getting into a particular behavior that we no longer control, but that it controls us, we may begin to consider that it may have turned into an addiction. And an addiction would be a compulsive physiological need for and a habit forming substance or behavioral process. What do I mean by behavioral process? Getting into an activity. Like gambling would be a process, a behavioral process. There isn't necessarily anything that you're physically having. It's more or less attaining the feeling in the act of gambling, for example, or overeating. You know, yeah, it's the food, but it's more like what you're putting into your body and the feeling you have from that. Um, we'd even say that codependency would be something when we become addicted to other people. What I mean by that is we put aside our needs for the sake of others, which is a noble thing. But then our whole value of who we are is based on how we help people or don't help people. That we take their feelings, we take their responsibilities, and we make them ours. And there's something about that we get from that we're able to help another person, but it's to our own expense. And we don't even know how to take care of ourselves. So that could even turn into an addiction, being codependent, others being the thing that we seek satisfaction and a different feeling than what we're really feeling. So it's addiction is a compulsive need and becomes a habit, but the habit itself becomes the very thing that controls us. And when we stop or we try to stop doing that particular thing or taking part in a particular substance that helps us feel better or feel nothing, we have a feeling of withdrawal, like almost to the point to where if I were to hold my breath for a while, well, obviously I have a withdrawal of needing to breathe. Well, breathing is necessary. But we may have a similar feeling as opposed to, I'm not going to have that cigarette, or I'm not going to have that drink, or I'm not going to go to the casino. And then we find ourselves in this space but I'm feeling like I need it right now because there's an emptiness I'm feeling. And those old feelings are there, feelings of anger and of stress and of dealing with life and work. And this is too much. I can't, I don't want to feel like this. I don't like this. I know that if I go to the casino or if I have a few of those drinks, it fills me and it satisfies me. No, I need it. I can't. This withdrawal thing is really driving me crazy. I don't like it. So then, when we begin to find out that it's the substance or the behavior or the compulsion that begins to control us, and we're at its mercy to the expense of everything else in our life. So when it really gets bad, then we begin to think, I'm addicted. I got a problem. Now, the problem is with that, we don't like sharing that kind of stuff with other people. I know that for myself, I kept it as a big secret and I didn't want to tell anyone because I didn't want them thinking bad of me. Now, here's the weird thing about that, though. Here, I'm trying to set up an image of myself, okay, of how I want people to see me. And it seems as though these particular things I get addicted to maintain a particular image I want others to see because it just helps me feel better. But what I'm not being aware of is that other people notice it. It's almost like a joke. The very thing I'm trying to keep from people is the very thing they're seeing in me. There's something wrong. Mark is not quite himself. He's been kind of short-tempered. He's been kind of isolating. He hasn't been that talkative. He hasn't been his happy self. There's something going on here, and I don't know what it is. Um, and yet we're thinking on our end, well, I'm keeping up the image. Okay, so long as I can keep doing these things and try to fulfill the responsibilities I have, and yet we find ourselves maybe canceling appointments or not following through on making a phone call back to somebody, and we're kind of in our own little world with our very sick friend, the kind of friend you shouldn't be hanging out with. You know, um, I know that for myself. Hanging out with my particular compulsion or behavior, was that kind of friend you ever when you grow up and you hang out with certain people, they seem like they're having a lot of fun, and then they start doing stuff that I'm not really in agreement with that, but in order to stay with them, I went ahead and tried it or did it in order to keep them with me. It's kind of like what my addiction was. Kind of like my unhealthy friend that I would hang out with, that I, after a while, only wanted to hang out with because at least I got that feeling of either feeling nothing or feeling happy or feeling the adrenaline and the reward of doing something that was rebellious or people wouldn't even believe what I'm doing and that risk taking kind of thing, because it was so outside of the everyday humdrum life that I thought I was living. Um, all of you may have particular stories of something that you've gotten yourself into. It may or may not be an addiction, but it's a behavior that what this is really causing my life to become unmanageable. What is that unmanageable? Unmanageable is that life begins controlling you instead of you taking the healthy steps to control what you do in life. The structure that you need, the relationships that you need, the honesty and the communication and seeking help when we need help. Instead, what happens is we allow all those stressors to control us. They dictate to us what we're to do. And a lot of times it comes down to keep doing this thing that makes you feel better. Keep partaking of this. Keep drinking. Keep smoking. Keep gambling. At least you know what that's like. At least you know that you feel better when you do those things or you feel nothing. And so then we feed into that as opposed to really filling ourselves with what we really need. And that's love and support, friendship, honesty, those values that get us up in the morning, that cause us to go to work and to do what we need to do, to be able to speak honestly and directly with people about stuff happening in our lives, to have real friendships and real connections. Most of us, when we find ourselves in the midst of a compulsion or an addiction, friends are not that important to us. Friends are only important to us to give us permission to continue doing what we're doing. It's okay for me to go to the boat. It's all right. Everybody does it. It's okay for me to go to the bar and have a few drinks. Everybody does it. It's okay for me to um, have another plate of food that I know, even though I'm not really that hungry, but I like the way it helps me feel. Helps me get sleepy and I can go to sleep. Whatever it might be for us. Um, there comes a point where we can hopefully get a sense of powerlessness. Okay, now what do I mean by powerlessness? Powerlessness is a state in which we lack control or influence over that particular compulsion or addiction or behavior that we've been participating in. That I can't stop. I can't get enough. It rules me. I allow it to continue to rule my life. I know that early on I said, I can stop whenever I want. I was talking earlier about that invisible line. That's when we've crossed it. When we go from normal behavior with stuff that everybody participates in to crossing the line and needing far more of it and spending more time with it than anybody else would. So, what turned out to be going with a couple of friends to the casino after dinner for a couple of hours turns into not letting my friends know and going on my own till all hours of the night, till the early morning, because I couldn't get enough. I couldn't get enough of being in that state of risk taking and adrenaline and feeling different. That I didn't have to think about anything in my real life. I could live that life. And this is where I feel most secure and comfortable, living this life and not wanting it to end. I guess you can figure that the addiction that and I'm in a program for is gambling. I've been in the program for 20 years. And knowing how many nights well, spending the night either in front of a video poker machine or at a blackjack table. And attaining that money wasn't so much about paying bills. Sometimes I was lucky enough to bring it home, but most times it was just to be able to stay longer. That it became the source in which I could stay on that mode and that feeling different. I'm not the responsible Mark who has a job that people depend on me. I'm the Mark that says, screw all of that. I don't care. I got needs. I'm the one that's being picked on. I'm the one that's being victimized here. I deserve to do what I want to do for myself. And it got to the point of, and if I want to hurt myself, then I'll hurt myself. And I don't care if this is going to put me into deeper debt and not follow through. Calling from the casino and canceling appointments or not making a particular meeting or whatever. Because what was more important to me was to be with my friend, my unhealthy, fun friend. Maybe for you guys, you've had that kind of experience in your life, whatever it is that you're dealing with. And the thing is, no one can tell you whether or not you have an addiction. People can tell you that you may have a particular problem on the behavioral level. In other words, you're not yourself. I've noticed you haven't been contacting me. I notice you haven't been doing the things you normally do that seem to bring you happiness or to you're a very responsible person, and I'm finding that you're acting differently. You're changing your routine. I thought you had particular values. People can address those things with you, but only you inside know whether or not a particular behavior or compulsion has control of you. And that when you say, I want to stop, and you don't stop, probably when you may have an addiction. Now, in many 12-step programs, they'll have maybe 20 questions, or they'll have a way for you to discover many different things on the internet that you can look at, and whatever particular thing you're dealing with that you may have a problem with, you may want to, maybe answer some questions to see if it really is a problem for you, because only you can make that decision. And then the most courageous thing and the greatest thing you can do for yourself is let somebody else in on it. In a sense, it's like taking a healthy friend or a healthy relationship and introducing them to your unhealthy, fun friend that's becoming a nuisance now, who won't go away, who is always with you, who's always calling you. So for me, that would be the casino or the video poker machine, calling me, always hanging out with me, wanting me to be with them when I'm not with them, and giving in. So letting a healthy relationship and introducing them to this unhealthy friend. And then maybe together saying, you need not to spend any time with them. They don't seem to be helping you. I mean, any good friend, even in regular life, particular people that can become abusive or take advantage of you, and your true friends who are honest with you are going to let you know, by the way, I don't think that guy's a good guy for you. I don't think this woman she's taking advantage of you. And until you can listen, a lot of times what you'll do is you'll be in denial and say, no, that's not a problem at all, because you're still getting something out of it. It's like you would get out of a person, an unhealthy relationship, um, until something happens. The extremes of that, God forbid, will either be prison, insanity, or death, is what they say. That you begin to break the law, whatever that might be, which is really going against your morals and your values. This compulsion and addiction has gotten to the point to where you're now contemplating things that you know are wrong, but for you right now, they're immediately writing good for you because you're going to get something out of it. Whether that's the thrill of doing it, that you begin to not look at yourself as something that you really want to take care of. You're taking care more of the feeling or the thought process more than yourself. And you're not even paying attention to how it's damaging you and how it's damaging all your relationships. So you may have broken a law or insanity. Insanity means getting to a point that you have completely left yourself, in a sense, maybe having a breakdown or having to go into a program or taking a break and going to a place that can take care of you. Um, or unfortunately for some people, it's death itself. Different aspects of death, the physical death, quite tragic and unfortunate. And for some people in the throes of an addiction, of that addiction that has so much power over us that we may get to a point to where we're going to harm ourselves. We may harm ourselves to the point of, in a sense, giving up, or the effects of the drugs we may take, or the amount of beer that we drank and we got into a car accident, we died, or we killed somebody, or getting so much deep in debt that you can't even handle how you're going to control that situation and resolve it. So you want to drive your car off a bridge. I had those thoughts. I didn't know what I was going to do. But thank goodness there were people in my life that cared about me and noticed things in me that helped me see that I needed to make a change and that my life had become unmanageable and that I needed help. Now, for myself, when I came to the realization that I had a gambling problem, I came to that myself. It seemed that I kept up a kind of a good front. Um, for whatever reason, I needed very little sleep. And so I was getting by with going to casino, but what people didn't know was the huge amount of debt that I was bringing, or that I was accruing. And so finally, it was a matter of I felt so lousy about myself that I was either going to end it or I was going to go tell somebody. And thank goodness I told somebody. And that got the ball rolling. It didn't have so much power over me. The more you can share the problems you have in your life, the less power it has over you. That's why meetings are important to people in 12-step programs, because they can share, bring it to the light of day, and have people understand. And then that unhealthy friend doesn't have anybody to turn to and eventually can walk away from us. Although it will still be out there in the looking through the window or right at the door or sitting over there on the other side of the room. And what we do is that we don't necessarily ignore them, but we don't invite them. We don't invite them to be with us. They're with us, but we don't have to engage in any activity with them. And by talking about them, the unhealthy person, that unhealthy addiction or compulsion, other people going, yeah, right, don't go near them. and yet understanding that they were friends with them too. Yeah, I was friends with them. I was friends with drinking. I was friends with gambling. I was friends with eating. I know exactly what they're like. They're fun at first, but boy, they do a number on me. I couldn't live my life without them after a while, and they knew it. So the powerlessness part is knowing that by ourselves we can't do anything about it and we won't get out of the situation. So we turn to other people and we turn to what we call a higher power. For most of us, that would be God. For some of us, it might be a program that we're in or our family, something that is more powerful than we are. That's our higher power. And the powerlessness is that we no longer have power to control what we do or don't do in regards to that compulsion or behavior or addiction. We convince ourselves we need it too much, and even our bodies will respond that way. And the withdrawal part can be really, really difficult unless we know that the higher power is there, helping us through it and saying to us, you can be restored again. You can be yourself again. You don't need that anymore. You can fill that emptiness with something healthy, like friendship and love, work, responsibility, prayer, those values that are instilled in you, those values that were created within you from the day you were born and that you discover as you get older. So plugging into the higher power. You know, I call this presentation power outage. So it's having what normally gives us power. You know, what gives us power? Well, life itself, breathing, eating, breathing, all this stuff, living the life we live every day, and the friendships that we have, and the things that we do. And sometimes we end up drawing power from something that only has limited power, and it's never enough to keep us fully alive anymore. Now, as I mentioned, how timely, because we've been having storms and stuff, and some people did experience power outages, and we've been having a heat wave. So for some, the concept and the experience of living in a house with no power and after a while getting really hot and not having lights and stuff, we really then come to an appreciation of how much we need electricity and how much we need certain power in our life to help us live healthy, to help us manage every day. Um, what I have here is I have a reflection that I wrote. It's made up, but it's a story or a short little story that I hope maybe helps you. And the reflection is called Power Outage. It was a typical summer evening in St. Louis. The day was the usual three H's: hazy, hot, and humid. I decided to spend my day off inside the comfort of my air conditioned home. My roommate was working, so I had the house to myself. As usual, I had no specific plans for the day, so I went to my computer, finding my favorite online gambling site. It was easy to get caught up in the excitement of thinking that today was my lucky day. Credit card attached to the site had a significant limit of $12,000, so I knew my day was set. For several hours, I found myself hovering a little ahead until I hit the jackpot. It was already evening, and I decided to cash in my winnings when suddenly the power went out. I was shocked and stunned that the screen went dark and found I had no way of retrieving my winnings. I sat in the darkness, fuming about how unfair that this time I finally won, but really beating myself up that I spent yet another day obsessed with getting my money back from the previous losses I accrued on the site. This new credit card was my salvation to getting even. I spent every spare moment trying to get back what I lost. I'm behind on rent. I've not spoken to my family or friends in days. I know I have a problem, but I don't want to tell anyone. But I know that trying to fix this on my own only brings me deeper into debt. I sit in the dark, quiet house, deafened by silence, replaced by the obsessive thoughts in my head of my powerlessness to stop. I did not realize how dependent I am on the convenience and necessity of electricity. I did not realize how dependent I was on the thrill of gambling. I found my cell phone and I made a call. Maybe my brother can help plug me back into the reality and the real power of love and support. It's worth a try. After that, I'm going to make a call to the gambling hotline and find help. The power may be out, but there is still the power to reach out. I'm tired of living in darkness. Here's some questions for you to consider, to reflect on. Um, what individual habits, characteristics, and behavior do I rely upon that make me isolate from the reality of the world in which I live? What or who makes me feel powerless? It causes me to think that things are not going to change. In other words, finding yourself in a situation where things just are not going to change for you. And then if they do, they're just going to get worse. So, what in your life makes you feel powerless? Or who makes you feel powerless? And the final question, what can I do differently that gives me a balanced sense or where true power lies? I can give you a hint of the answer to that one. It lies in the higher power. For many of us, that's God. For many of us, it's our families. For many of us, it's a program that we involve ourselves in to get the support we need. In other words, whatever is outside of ourselves has more power than we do. If we're going to get better, if we're going to be able to make changes in our lives, we must rely on something that is more powerful than we are. The thing of it is, when we grasp onto that, it becomes something that we possess within ourselves, and then we become part of the greater power by helping other people and helping them through their time. That's the great thing about it. Once we plug into the higher power, then we possess that higher power. We become the instrument of it. And then we make the difference in someone else's life. And you know how we do that? By sharing the times that we didn't have power, when we were powerless, when we had nothing. Think of the empty house that's dark and quiet during a power outage. How quiet it is when we can share that about our issues in our lives. The power comes back on. And it's not our power. It's a power of something greater. The power of fellowship and of love and of friendship and of honesty and of the good stuff of life that truly feeds us and makes us who we are. So, my friends, know the greater power in your life. Plug into it. And then you become that greater power when you share it with someone else. Our quote for the week comes from Proverbs, chapter 28, verse 26. He who trusts in himself is a fool, but he who walks in wisdom is kept safe. I have a final prayer. God, when I depend upon myself alone, there is no room for you. What I give myself is never enough in my addictive behavior. Help me learn from my life experiences that when I succeed, it is when I turn to you. May I never forget that you are my higher power, the source that gives me power to live a healthy and happy life. Amen. So, my friends, I have something for you to consider, a weekly goal. It's not a major one. I don't want to, you're not going to build a house or anything, but I invite you to take a look at your daily routine, what you do every day. Find those things that aren't that healthy for you, that you're discovering that it's beginning to control you in a sense. Make a small change or do something differently that gives you a better sense of healthy power in your life. So, for example, don't if you're a smoker, don't have a cigarette after dinner if that's what you normally do. And then whatever it is we may want to give up a little bit, allow yourself to feel the emptiness. Allow yourself to feel the withdrawal. And then think about how you can replace what that does for you with something else. It may be a phone call to a friend. It may be reading a book. It may be going out for a walk. Whatever it is, let it be something healthier for you. So if you guys would like a copy of what I gave you today, I'd be more than happy to email it to you. My email address is mwhitman, MWHITMAN, 185 @gmail.com. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit the like button. Subscribe if you like. If you want, tell friends and others about this channel and have them subscribe as well. Trying to get a bit of a gathering of people here. As time goes on, as I learn more about how to use YouTube, I'll hopefully do a little more things on it. But thank you. This was my first presentation, and thank you for taking the time to listen. Everybody take care and have a good week.